Assalamu alaikum, my brothers. Today we're gonna make a video rating UFC Freedom 250. My name is Omar, and I'm joined here by Landon.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Before we start, we should just talk about some of the expectations that we've had from this card. There were so many fights that were supposed to be on the card that ended up not working out. Like Conor McGregor, for example, like he was supposed to be on the card. John Jones was saying he was negotiating with the UFC. They hyped it up so much. They were saying there was like 6 title fights.
I think, like I said, they bit off a little more than they could chew with the promotion with it. Dana said this is going to be the best card you've ever seen. Nothing like it before or since. While, it's probably the best, 6-fight card they've had in a while, definitely this year. I think it's a little bit disappointing considering the hype that they were building up prior to the announcement.
Limiting it down to just 6 fights. I think they could have done a lot better. But yeah, let's just get started with this. All right, the headliner, Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. We pretty much predicted this. I feel like it was the obvious fight to make. You have your American Justin Gaethje. Ilia's the champ. Wasn't too surprising.
We knew that they were probably going to have an American in the main event fighting for a title. Justin was really the only option, so this was a little bit predictable. But, it's a fun fight. Ilia comes back. It's good to see him getting over the divorce saga that he, has been having over the spring. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I think, Justin's coming off a great win against Patty, and we'll see what he can do here with Ilia. I don't think he's going to win, but he'll definitely make it entertaining.
Yeah, this is like one of the few, in my opinion, one of the few good fights on this card. I think it's pretty solid. I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10. As you said, Justin's coming off of that Patty win, which was a great win for him. He's an American guy that's headlining the card. I feel like this is a 9 out of 10 fight.
Yeah, again, I'm really excited for this one. I'm going to take Ilia. I assume you saw his tweet at the end. He was saying that this wasn't Gaethje's fault and that he wasn't going to embarrass him, but it was going to be over quick by the time he woke up. That got a little bit of a chuckle out of me because now I'm, fairly sure Gaethje's just going to get popped out round one. I think we're in for a really entertaining 1 or 2 round fight, though. And it's probably my favorite fight of the card. I'm really excited for this, and I'm really excited to see what Ilia does next after he beats Gaethje, which I assume he will.
Yeah, on to the next one. Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane for the interim heavyweight. So he vacated his light heavyweight. We know that Yuri is fighting Olberg for the vacated title at light heavyweight. I just like this fight. This is my favorite fight on the card. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I feel a little biased because I partially predicted this during the beginning of the year. We made a video about the future champs in each division, and I thought that Alex was going to move up to heavyweight and that Yuri was going to become champ in light heavyweight, and it looks like it's already starting to happen. This is my favorite fight. I'd love to see Alex Pereira knock out Ciryl Gane, revenge for what he did to Tom Aspinall, poking his eyes out. He's had this coming. He needs to get knocked out. We need to get him out. No more title shots for Ciryl Gane. Alex Pereira is one of my favorite fighters, so I rate this heavily.
I'm super excited about this one. I think matchup-wise, this is maybe my favorite just because of the dynamics of the fight. I think this is a really interesting matchup for Alex going into counter striker who has great movement like Gane. But I'm also quite confident Alex because I think what he does best is he chops the legs, he cuts off the cage, doesn't let you escape him, and that is kind of Gane's superpower. Is to, circle, use his movement at heavyweight. And I think Alex is going to be able to neutralize it similar to what Volkov did. I trust Alex's finishing ability a lot more than I trust Volkov. So I think he's going to win. And I think this is going to be a really, really fun fight to watch and see how it actually plays out. And I think it could go either way.
Especially facing off against someone that isn't much of a wrestler, which is Pereira's, one of his main weaknesses. But yeah, I think this is like a really good matchup for Alex. If he wins this, we're very likely to see Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira in New York, Madison Square Garden, because that's where Alex Pereira has all of his best fights. He had his introduction into the UFC at MSG, his fight against Israel Adesanya at MSG.
Get to Yuri.
Against Yuri again, yes, at MSG. It's also potential for him to be GOAT and capture 3 belts, which has never been done before. So
absolutely, yeah.
We're just seeing the making of history. There's a lot of potential that can come out of this one fight. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Like you mentioned, if he wins, leads into an Aspinall matchup. And I think if he were to beat Gane, become the interim champion, and he's heading into a matchup with Tom Aspinall, that is a fight that if he wins, I would be willing to put him as the GOAT. I think that is the biggest legacy defining moment of his career, of honestly almost anyone's career. Getting the 3rd belt against a fighter like Tom, who I think has great advantages over him, would do wonders, and I really want to see it. So I'm hoping he wins against Gane.
I think even if he wins against Gane, that's still a really good win. That's the win that John Jones got to become champ.
Yeah, I think I would put him in the top 5 with the Gane win,
Hmm.
and he would enter. If you recall back to the GOAT list we made, I said the only 3 people that I thought had a real argument for the GOAT were GSP, John, and Islam. I think I would put Alex in that conversation with the Gane win,
Hmm.
and then with the hypothetical Aspinall win, he would be my GOAT at that point.
On to the next one. Sean O'Malley versus Iman Zahabi. I feel like this could have been a little better. It's not
Should have been
horrible.
Sandhagen, right?
Yeah, we thought it would be Sandhagen. That would have been way better. 2 American guys facing off against each other. You know, Iman Zahabi's Canadian, Sean O'Malley, American. I know Iman Zahabi's going up in the division, but why are they giving him Sean O'Malley so quickly? Wouldn't the UFC want to protect Sean O'Malley? I think Zahabi's last opponent was Cheeto. I don't know. I just feel like that's a very big step up.
Yeah, that was also a very, if you remember, a very controversial split decision
Hmm.
coming off the back of a controversial decision he got against, Jose Aldo. So his last 2 wins have also not been convincing. I think he's a good fighter, but I mean, he's ranked like 6th right now, which I think is a bit overrated, and he's getting a feature fight against O'Malley at the White House. I don't get why he's being rewarded for not being very impressive recently.
And this is an O'Malley that just beat Song Yadong. I don't know what getting a win against Aiemann would do for Sean O'Malley at this point.
Yeah, this is a fight that I feel like only really rewards the hobby in the
Yeah,
end.
I'll probably rate it like a
I give it
5,
like a 6.
5, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of options. They could have gone with Umar, which would have been worse for Sean O'Malley, but it would have been a better fight overall. They could have done Peter Yan versus O'Malley. It could have been the co-main.
Yeah, I think they're gonna save Jan because they do need to. If they're gonna use Alex and Topuria on the same card, I think they're gonna need to save some title fights for later in the summer. And I feel like Jan Marab is probably one of them if it's not the April card. O'Malley was a guy that I think most people figured would get a spot on the White House card. He's got enough name value to really sell whatever fight he's in, but it feels like a missed opportunity going with Zahabi over, like you said, a Sandhagen would have been my first choice. I think that would have been a great fight. Batista, as a lot of people I think you could have gone with, and then you could have saved Zahabi for a different matchup later in the summer.
On to the next one. Mauricio Ruffy versus Michael Chandler. This one's pretty solid. Mauricio Ruffy's, heading up. He's facing off against Michael Chandler, who's lower in the rankings. Kind of feels like he's moving down because they just gave him someone above him, Rafael Fiziev, and he just beat him. This kind of like benefits Michael Chandler a little bit, even though I don't think he's favored to win this fight. They could have given him someone entertaining like Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor maybe even. But yeah, I just feel like this isn't good for Ruffy at all. This is kind of holding him back a little bit.
Yeah, this is more of a White House fight than it is, a Ruffy contender fight. Chandler is like another guy, with O'Malley and, some people, Bo Nickal, who we'll get to later. It's just somebody you figure was going to get booked on here. It doesn't maybe make a lot of sense for Ruffy in terms of career development, getting to the title, but I think it is going to be beneficial to his audience. A lot of people know Michael Chandler. A lot of people are going to be paying attention to Michael Chandler and what he does because he's a very high profile guy. He's exciting. People are going to want to watch him. So I think it will do a lot for Ruffy to get that matchup in. I think he's going to give Michael Chandler a highlight KO. I think he's going to finish him early. I think it's just going to be good PR for Ruffy. Another win on the books that he probably won't take a lot of damage in. And then he can refocus on moving up the rankings. I think it's just another fun addition to the card that doesn't really mean a whole ton.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely one of the better non-title fights. I think it's the best non-title fight on this card. It would be a good potential highlight reel for Mauricio Ruffy. I'd probably rate it like a 7 out of 10.
I think pure entertainment wise, I think we could be in for, maybe the fight of the night or at least like performance of the night from Ruffy. I think a 7 or an 8 is fine. That makes sense to me.
All right, on to the next one. Bo Nickal versus Kyle Daukaus. This one's kind of a little confusing. It just feels like a prelim that made its way to being a main event fight, and I think they just did this because of Bo Nickal. Again, Bo Nickal is one of those fighters where he's going to go on the White House card. He's an American D1 wrestler that the UFC has been really trying to push. They've given him so many favors. I just feel like this isn't the biggest fight, and I don't know why it's main eventing.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to Nickal on the card if the matchup is right. Daukaus makes no sense, though. Like you said, really weird. This is, reminiscent to me of, you take 300, which is probably the greatest card that's ever been built, and you put Nickal versus Brundage on the main card over a Yuri Prohaska fight or a Diego Lopes fight. It's just insane Dana White privilege to give Bo Nickal this sort of shine. It's a matchup he's probably just going to win. like he normally does dominantly. He's been doing it to everyone who hasn't been RDR, who he knows elite. I don't get why you put this here when you could have easily given him a more challenging fight or just saved this matchup for a different card instead of taking up a slot on the White House.
This is another one of the lower ranked fights. I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10.
It's my least favorite fight on the card.
Maybe even a 4 out of 10. They could have definitely given him someone better to face off against.
Probably the worst fight on the card. Most disappointing one, I'd say. Could have done better.
It's crazy that it's over this next fight. The next fight, Diego Lopes versus Steve Garcia. There's a couple things. First off, the major thing. Diego Lopes' next fight could have been way better. Diego Lopes versus Yair Rodriguez. That's what everyone had in mind after the Volkanovski rematch with Diego Lopes, because they already have the malice towards each other, the beef, so they wouldn't really have to hype it up, and it would be, a perfect headliner for UFC Noche. Steve Garcia, he's like a little lower in the rankings. Yeah, I just feel like they could have done a little better. I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10.
I think this is kind of similar in terms of just matchup wise to Ruffy and Chandler, in that I think it's gonna be really fun. I like the matchup as a fight. I think it's gonna be super entertaining. But like you said, I think it's something they could have done better with. I think everyone wanted to see Diego Lopes take on Yair Rodriguez, and I think Steve Garcia, you could have given like an Aljamain Sterling or somebody else that wasn't Diego, which is really high in the rankings. As a fight, I'm fine with it. It's just as a common theme of this card, there were just better options you could have gone to if you really wanted to. I'd say like a 7.5. I think it's going to be a good fight. You just done better. I think everyone wanted Diego and Yair. If we never get that, I'm going to be really disappointed after their interaction back at 314.
This is going to be the full card. The main thing that I noticed, not too many Americans on this card. I mean, you have Justin Gaethje, O'Malley, Chandler, but overall, just 6 Americans. Another thing that we discussed, it's just not stacked enough. It was way overhyped. They said we would have 6 title fights. Like,
we knew that wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah, we knew that wasn't gonna happen, but they could have at least stacked it up a little bit. 2 of these guys are unranked. Garcia's like in the lower rankings.
He's 9. I checked while you were talking about it.
There's been regular cards that have been more stacked than this. I think overall I'd give it like a 7 out of 10.
I think main and co-main, 10 out of 10. You couldn't really have done better unless you were getting John Jones. That 3 through 6, I'd probably say is a 7. It could have been a little stronger. The only weak one I thought was Nickal Daukaus, like truly weak one.
Okay, so that would average out to like about 7. It's not a bad card. Mid-tier, I'd say, because it's just not as stacked as it should be, and there's no prelims or anything to lean back on.
Yeah, that might be my biggest disappointment, is that we didn't get prelims. I thought this is a golden opportunity to have 4 or 5 fights among guys that maybe are not as high profile, but they could be really building a name here, and I feel like they robbed us of that just to give us just the main card.
If you're not going to have prelims, you have to really stack the card. Cause they pretty much gave us a prelim, Nickal versus Daukaus. Like, that would be a prelim.
The fact that there's a matchup where it's 2 unranked guys for the White House is insane to me.
Yeah, and I don't know how that is over Lopes versus Garcia. That makes no sense. And it's on Sunday too?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. June 14th, right?
Just so many things wrong with this card.
Silver lining we can get out of this is that every fight should be really entertaining.
We have 2 knockout artists in Topuria and Pereira. Ruffy's a finisher as well. O'Malley could potentially finish Zahabi too.
Diego's a finisher when he's not fighting Volk.
Garcia's a finisher as well.
Garcia is a finisher. Recently he's got TKO against Onama, decision against Cater, but then after that, again, it's TKO, TKO, KO, KO, TKO, KO, KO. Like, he's a real finisher, so he should be interesting to see for this one.
Yeah, and Nickal's coming off of a finish. Chandler, his only 2 wins were finishes as well.
And he only gets finished.
Yeah, he gets finished too, so, someone's getting finished in that fight. It's not a horrible card, but it's a lot worse than what most fans were expecting. And when that happens, people tend to really, dislike the events. Sometimes they're not that good on paper, but they live up to the hype. Because I remember when UFC 300 first came out, a lot of people were saying it was really trash. Now it's really remembered fondly, has a lot of good moments. The Alex Pereira first round KO of Jamal Hill, the
Prohaska,
the
Felipe
Prohaska
package was a big one.
Yeah, and also the last second KO, Max Holloway against Justin Gaethje. So you never know. We might get some of those moments for UFC Freedom 250, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, but I mean, very excited for it, and yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it. It's been in the making for a long time, so I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think, what you guys would rank all of these fights, what you guys would rate them, and what you guys would rate the card overall. But yeah, see you guys later.
See ya.